Hello and welcome to the Brain Injury Group podcast, where we'll share stories, insights, guidance and advice to families and individuals impacted by life-changing injuries and the professionals working alongside them. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Abilities Enabled, for helping us bring these stories to you across the sessions. My name's Claire, and today I'm joined by not only our welfare benefits and young people and children specialist, but also one of my closest friends, Kate Dixon, who's going to share her story. The theme of today's podcast is The Day My Life Changed Forever, parenting a child with a brain injury. Hello, Kate.
Hi.
Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about your story before you had children?
So obviously we've known each other a long time, and we met pre-kids on holiday. You did see the real side to me, I think. I was just very ambitious, very career driven, and also excited to start a family.
Yeah, so we had some good times on that holiday and spent quite a lot of time together afterwards. We also actually got pregnant at the same time, so we both experienced that together and the excitement of that. Do you want to share a little bit about what your expectations were prior to having children, about what you thought being a mum would be like for you?
Yeah, I think obviously I was married and felt like my career was on a good path. I decided to start a family. I'm not sure I was quite ready, but yeah, I was willing to do that. And I just thought everything was going to be perfect, like you do. I'm going to have a family, I'm going to have a nice big house, and I could still be successful. And it just wasn't that way, unfortunately.
So, excitingly, Leo was born a little bit early on my birthday. So we are birthday twins. I remember being out and about for my birthday and getting various missed calls off you, which I thought you were just really keen to wish me happy birthday. But when we eventually spoke, you told me that Leo was here. He was a little bit early, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was 6 weeks early, and again, I just went into sporadic labour, very quick labour, and obviously, it was what I thought a normal labour. Didn't think there was any massive complications. He did go into SCBU, which he spent 12 days, and then we were able to take him home. No concerns really. Just thought that was normal, and we had a happy, healthy child, and off we were going to be parents. And obviously that's a different story in itself.
Yeah, so we spent quite a lot of time together in the early days of being parents, because we both had children of similar ages. We sort of talked about our experiences together, and at first things seemed to be going okay with Leo.
Yeah, and I remember, you probably remember this conversation where I think Claire was pulling her hair out and was not really enjoying having a newborn baby. And I remember going to visit you quite a few times, and you being so stressed out, and sort of you and your husband getting quite ratty with each other, and me and my husband just kind of be like, I don't see what the stress is all about. This is a breeze, he sleeps all night. There's no issues around feeding. Yeah, everything was really easy. We just didn't see having a newborn baby as a challenge, really.
Yeah, I know. At the time, I thought it was a struggle and felt like I couldn't even go and have a shower without having to take Luke into the bathroom in his bouncer and him crying or whatever. And I think you were sailing through, it felt like at the time. And it did feel a little bit like, oh my goodness, I've got this really hard work baby and Kate's got this dream. So early days, things seemed to be going as expected. You took to motherhood quite well. Leo was a happy baby from what I remember. Tell us when you first started to think that something might be a little bit different about Leo.
I think it was when he was approaching 1, he had a real nasty turn in his eye. And I remember a family member pointing it out, and I was fuming. I was fuming that this person had pointed it out. And I remember sitting in the car with my husband on the way home and kind of going, how dare they just point out that he's got this really nasty turn in his eye. He's perfect. And my husband just looked at me and said, no, let's be honest. He has got a real bad turn in his eye, and it's not going. And we were just like, oh, okay, what do we do about it? So I booked a doctor's appointment and just took him to the doctor's, sat there and said, well, he's obviously got a really nasty turn in his eye. What do I do about it? And she said, well, what's your health visitor said? And I said, well, I've not seen a health visitor for months. I thought that was normal. Clearly wasn't normal. I think the GP straight away was kind of quite concerned, probably as well, when I think back to, I was probably holding him like a baby.
Yeah.
And obviously now I've had another child and had a 1-year-old. That is not how you hold a 1-year-old, really. They're on the move and wanting to wriggle, which that wasn't Leo. He was just sat on my lap, and I was very much supporting the way he was sat. So yeah, that was the start of it, really. And the health visitor very quickly came out and was kind of, oh, have you moved? And I was like, no, I've not moved. And again, thought that was normal, that we hadn't seen a health visitor. And then it just kind of, over the coming months, was we went to the eye hospital, and I remember them saying, and Leo was led down asleep in his pushchair, and this was coming probably about 14 months, I would say. And she said to me, why has he got a flat head at the back? I was like, oh God, everyone's so complimentary about my child. And I was like, well, he's always asleep. He's always led down, and obviously, I guess it'll just change shape as he gets older. And so she was like, well, what do you mean he's always asleep? And I said, well, I don't know. He's just really lazy. Everyone kept telling me boys are lazy, and I'm really lucky that he sleeps all the time. And so straight away, she started saying, can he sit up unaided? I said, no. She said, can he roll over? No. Does he attempt to crawl? I said, not at all. Well, obviously from there, she obviously had masses of concerns, and I did see the follow-up letter from that. But again, when I think back, I don't think I'm a naive person. But when I look back, there was so much just... And the internet was different then, it wasn't so much on your phone, and I wasn't Googling everything, and you never think it's going to happen to you. So, yeah.
So I think it escalated quite quickly from there, didn't it? And there came a point where you received a diagnosis for Leo. And I know that was a challenging time for you and the family. And I think this is a big part of your story, which will potentially help others who are at that point in their lives, in their journey, in the things in which we can maybe do differently.
Yeah, I think so. I think diagnosis, I'd like to think 15 years on is very different, but I still do hear the odd horror story. And it's important that, when I've spoken to professionals about it, or previous, obviously the consultant I have now, and I've spoken to her about it, she was quite shocked by the way I was told. And yeah, it was just, when I look back, it's not a moment that I've spoken about over the last couple of years, but it was just a real moment that you look back and just think, wow, that had a massive impact on my life. And yeah, just it's just sad, really, and the limited support there was, and leaving that room and not knowing what was next. And
So you were on your own, weren't you, when you took Leo to what you thought was a relatively routine appointment at the hospital?
Being quite naive, Leo had started having physio because, and again, I just, obviously had a little look on the internet and was kind of, he's just kind of got low muscle tone. And so I was thinking, that's fine. He's got plenty of time to build some muscle and learn to walk and build that strength. So we had started having physio and some more eye appointments. And I kept asking the physio, what do you think it is? And she kind of would just scoot around it and not really say much. So then we had a paediatrician appointment booked in, and this was when he was 18 months. And I went to the appointment. I remember my husband saying, do you want me to come with you? And I was like, no, it's fine. It's just a little review, and we'll just talk about what's next. And does he still need to have physio? And again, just both very naive to it. And I remember going to the appointment, just myself and Leo, and the physio was sat outside the room, who I wasn't particularly keen on either, because it just felt like she would never say anything to me. Or if I asked her a question, she wasn't really she'd scoot around. So I remember she was adamant that she came in the room with me. So I think she knew I was going to turn up on my own. And she said, can I come in? And I said, no, I'm fine. I'll go in on my own. And she said, no, I think I should come in with you. So she obviously knew what was coming. And our consultant at the time was very much towards the end of her career. And yeah, we went into the room and she checked Leo over. Leo was getting quite agitated and fidgety. And she kind of just said, so I think the next steps are we need to do an MRI scan. So I said, right, okay, well, what are you looking to find? And she said, well, I think he's had a bleed on the brain at some point. So I said, right, okay, so do we go now? Like, are we going to do that now? And obviously I'm in a bit of a state of shock at this point, and Leo was getting agitated, and I'm trying to listen at the same time. And she was just like, well, no, it's no rush. We don't need to do that. It'll be in a couple of months. So obviously, as you can imagine, as a parent, I'm thinking this is, he's still got this bleed on the brain, and it's having a great impact as time goes on. So then I said, well, okay, so I'm obviously flabbergasted that there's no rush to have this MRI. And I said, so what if we have the MRI and there is no bleed on the brain and there is nothing? What does that mean? And I said, does that mean he's okay? Or like, what? And she said, no, you've still got cerebral palsy. So as you can imagine, I was just sort of just said, what? Like, what? And she said, oh, for a second there, you looked like you knew. And I said, and she said, did you not know? And I said, I'm really confused. What are you talking about? And she said, he's got cerebral palsy. At this point, Leo is starting to cry and he's getting really agitated. I could feel the physio just staring at the side of my head. Yeah, it was just a moment where, when you watch a movie and that moment where it's just silent in the room and you just can't hear anything, and you're just kind of thinking, is this real? Am I going to wake up in a minute? And I'm thinking, I need to ask questions, and I don't really know what to ask. And I don't, like, am I silly? Am I being a bit thick? Like, what should I be asking? I don't really know what to say. Yeah, and that was just, and then the next minute I'm pushed out the door and off I went. And then I had to tell my husband.
Yeah, and that was the first time cerebral palsy had been mentioned really through the process, hadn't it? And as you say, you were pushed out the door. You had to then go home and find the right way to tell Mike what happened whilst trying to deal with this yourself. And I don't think you got much support at all in those early days after that diagnosis, did you? I mean,
no.
It was for you and Mike to try and navigate what this meant for you and for Leo yourselves.
Yeah, and I remember, going back and having to give that news to Mike, and he's going to have a million questions, and I'm thinking, well, I can't answer them. So I remember my husband's in construction, and obviously I always used to work miles away. And I remember ringing him and was sat in the car, and Leo, I just remember looking back at Leo, and he just had this little smile on his face because he's back in his safe place in the car. And I just had tears streaming down my face. And I remember just ringing Mike, and he's like, oh, hi, like, how'd it go? What did they say? More physio, or is he okay now? Or I remember just saying, you need to come home. And he was just like, what? And obviously it was really loud in the background, and then he went silent on the phone. He said, what do you mean? And he said, oh, I'm over an hour away. What do you mean? What's obviously? And I was just like, you just need to come home. I need to speak to you about something. And he was just like, I'm over an hour away. I'm going to leave now, but there is no way I can drive home without, what's wrong? Like, and I just burst into tears and said, Leo has cerebral palsy. And he was just silent on the phone. And he was just like, what? What do you mean? What does that mean? Like, what? I said, I don't know. I don't know. I remember just that sort of, okay, I'll be home in a minute. I'll be home as soon as I can. I remember just driving home, and it was about a 25-minute drive, and just I couldn't even tell you what route I drove. Honestly, I remember getting home and just grabbing my laptop, opening my laptop, sitting there thinking, what do I write in Google? And the first thing I wrote, and remember just sat there with my finger hovering over the search button, thinking, and I put, what's the prognosis and what's his life expectancy? Because I was just like, is he going to die before he's 18? And that in my head, because I left that room not knowing what his life expectancy was going to be. And that was probably, it wasn't even about what life was going to look like. It was more when I'm going to lose him.
And I think that's really important for those of us who work in this world rather than live in this world, to remember that things might seem straightforward and we know what things look like, but for a parent who's receiving that news, you've might have heard the term cerebral palsy before, but you've heard it, you've not looked into what that means, what that looks like, what your future might look like, and how you're going to navigate your way through that as a family. And I think we need to be mindful that there's people at the end of this story, isn't there, that are living it day in, day out, and it's their news, it's not our news.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just all of a sudden, it's like you wake up the next day after that diagnosis, and it's just appointment after appointment after appointment. It's just your life is consumed by going to appointments that are just negative, just so negative. And it's just, and I remember someone saying to me years ago, you're grieving. And I had a little bit of counselling actually at one point, and someone said to me, you're grieving. It was the counsellor who said it. And I remember I was fuming when she said it. And I said, no, I'm not grieving. How dare you say that? He's not dead. He's still very much here, and and he will be for many years. And I remember just, and then after a couple of months, and kind of having a bit more counselling and speaking about how I'm feeling and all the challenges in my life, and just feeling like I was offloading everything, that I was like, my God, I'm grieving. And I'm still grieving now. And I think that, and I think that's really hard to say out loud when your child is still very much here, that the grieving process is just now shaped differently.
Yeah. And is that at every milestone that?
I think so. And I think, and I don't want my friends to ever feel badly about this, and is sometimes seeing my friends' children when they be doing things and, becoming young men, which is what the age Leo is at now. And and I'm seeing them and they're thriving through life, and Leo's path is just very, very different. But it's just different.
Yeah. I think as your friend, that's something I've always been really conscious of, especially because there's 6 months between Luke and Leo, really, and Leo was Luke's first friend when they were babies. Leo was probably the person, even though we lived quite far away from each other, that Luke spent the most time with. And yeah, I was always very conscious of that through all stages of Luke's growing up, as to sort of how me saying things that Luke had done or was experiencing might impact on you. But I know you have always been really interested in how he's doing, what his life's like. But I can imagine that grieving process is like a continuous cycle at each of those different stages.
It is, yeah. And I think, sometimes you look around and you think, oh God, they're just swanning through life, everything's perfect. And then I think, God, what happened with us? I just think, God, we've lost so many people along the way, and I just feel like every year Leo gets diagnosed with something else, and everyone sort of that doesn't see Leo for long periods of time are very sort of, oh, what's he doing now? And oh, is he progressing? And is he doing really well? But his steps are very, very small, and that's fine. But that's what I would say to parents. Just appreciate those small steps. And I think just because others are taking massive steps and you feel that your life is small steps, that's fine. Everyone's journey is different. And yeah, just grieve and go with it and ask for help. That was always a challenge in my life. I felt really hard, like I couldn't ask for help. I felt, but sometimes when I did ask for help, I was knocked back, and that was really difficult, because sometimes it was from people that were really close to me that I thought should help me, and never did. And I don't want to go into that too much because things have moved on since then. But yeah,
I think that's a good point to sort of reflect back on. I've always known you throughout the whole of our time of knowing each other as being a really independent, driven, forthright individual. And I can imagine that asking for help is a really tough thing for you in any situation. But if we think about what we talked about at the beginning about what life was like before Leo, and we talked about the fact that when we both had our children and we were very new parents, that you took to it very well. I struggled with that, and it was a challenge. But what was life like for you in those early years post-diagnosis? Maybe not right at the very beginning after diagnosis, but as things sort of, you settled into your new routine and life with Leo, and what did that look like for you? What were the changes and the impacts on your life?
God, I think one word sums it up would be lonely. I just felt so lonely. I had so many people around me and so many great friends, and my husband's really supportive and still is. But there was things that I knew I couldn't do for a long time, and that was have a career, which was massive for me, and it's not big for some, but that was massive for me. And from a selfish point of view, I found that really, really difficult. And I also felt that I had to become this. I don't know why I felt this, but I had to become this boring parent and change who I was completely and stop being the party girl, which clearly hasn't stopped. It was just really, really difficult. And sometimes I felt that I didn't want to burden my husband with it. because it was challenging. Like financially, it was really challenging. We had, halved our income coming into our house. So for him, it was, he obviously felt the pressure as well of having to go through his own grieving process, which when I think back, I probably felt like it was more about me than it was about him. But I didn't feel like I had time to grieve or I could support anyone else, because I just felt I was fighting fires all the time, and that's really difficult, just feeling like you just don't get any breathing space, and you're all of a sudden expected to know everything and know what's next and what the path is going to look like and what your child needs, and you're just putting trust in the system, and you're just thinking what they tell you and what you're given is what's right, and that's all there is. And yeah, that's not how it is.
So tell us about the Help Leo Walk charity and the fundraising. That was a big part of those early years of perhaps part of the grieving process and the acceptance process, and like you just said, you accept, you think that what the professionals tell you is going to be, that's what you, and you were always, from my mind, very sort of tenacious in that you would dig into things, you would look into things, you wouldn't just necessarily accept what the professionals told you. You still do that now, and we see the some of the battles that you have, which I know are exhausting, but at that time we did a lot of fundraising.
Yeah, so that was definitely part of the journey, I think. We'd found out about an operation in America, which is available over in this country now. And we'd seen it on a local newspaper of now good friends of ours, that this young boy from a town not so far from us had gone to America and had this operation, and he was now walking. So I was just like, wow, oh my God, this is amazing. And anyone who knows me is I am a doer. And yeah, no job is too big. It's just when I'm going to do it, really. It's just, and I just thought, oh, okay, we can do this. And I could see on the front of the newspaper, they had to raise £60,000 to do this. And that was what the newspaper article was about. And so yeah, that was it. That was the start of it, really. Started Googling. Now I'm a Google freak. And that was it. Just thought, right, I'm gonna start fundraising and I'm gonna fix him. And yeah, and that was the start of it. So I went on a night out and was sat in a restaurant, sat next to some random famous people, which was one of them being Mickey Rourke, randomly. And just thought, I'm not one to miss an opportunity, as we all know. So I was like, right, how can I get them involved? And Gareth Thomas and Joe Calzaghe was sat there. So I was like, right, well, this is an opportunity. I hadn't even set this up at the time. I was just like, right, I'm just going to ask him, because I hadn't even spoke to my husband about what we were going to start with. But I was like, oh, hey, so we're going to do a fundraiser for my son. It's going to be a black tie. Just like, I was like, do you want to come? You can come. You can do Q&A, and kind of sold it to them, why wouldn't you want to come? So they were like, who's this weirdo? So anyway, yeah, somehow managed to start setting this up and booked this fundraiser in. I remember all my family members saying, oh my God, what, you're going to raise £60,000? And what if you don't do it? And I was like,
I just want to interject there and say, Gareth, I have got a picture of me and Gareth Thomas at one of the fundraisers. I've also got a picture of me at another of your fundraisers with Darren Campbell, the sprinter. So you were a prolific stalker of celebrities at the time.
I was, yeah, just not one to, yeah. If I come across someone, I'm like, right, I'm going in. So I'm still the same now. So yeah, yeah, we just, somehow there had this black tie event. Gareth Thomas came along, did a Q&A. It was very successful. It raised lots of money that night. I think we raised about £9,000, and it was great. And that was really the start of the journey. And obviously, I think I need to mention that one of the things that we started with, and I always said I would never do it. I remember being sat with my husband and his friend, and he was like, I'm going to do a skydive for your son. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then my husband was like, oh God, I'm going to have to do it with him, aren't I? This is really bad. And I was like, I'll do anything but jump out of a plane. Yeah. A couple of weeks later, we're booked to jump out of an aeroplane along with you. And
who was the only one that jumped out that first day?
So we travelled down to Swansea. I think there was about 10 of us that actually we roped in and raised lots of money to do it. But the day we were going, it was too windy, and they only had space for one extra person on the plane. So we all said, well, Claire's travelled the furthest, and it means that she won't have to travel again down here. So let's put Claire in the plane. It's only fair. So off she went, and off we went, didn't you?
Yeah, and I think that was there was lots going on at that time, and you successfully managed to get Leo over to America. Tell us about the learnings from that time, and if you could give one piece of advice to anyone that's at that stage of their journey now, what do you think it would be?
The fundraising, or
just the whole of that early part of life after diagnosis?
Stop, breathe, just try not to survive, just try and live. It's difficult. I think sit and just, I don't know, it's just really, really, like, for me, and we'll go on to this shortly, and we're going to speak about it, is I wish someone had just sat me down and just said, look, just this is what it might look like, and this is probably the things you need to be looking at, and prioritize them. And sometimes it's just having that person to offload to, someone who's maybe been there, and just you're not going to fix them. I've learned that. The operation was successful to a degree, but I don't think we took into, we didn't appreciate what was going to follow after that operation in regards to therapy and some of the other things that came with that. And we didn't really take that into account because we were looking at other people's journeys, and obviously everyone's journey is different. And Leo's journey was obviously his behaviour and his size, and that brought other battles in itself. So the therapy had to be very different. But I wish I just had someone that got it.
Yeah.
Just got it and just listened and just give me some guidance, not told me what to do, just because no one's ever going to tell you what to do. Everyone knows I'm like that. But just someone who would listen to me, someone who gets it, someone who's walked the same path or going to be on a similar journey, really. Just some guidance and advice, and try to save all that stress and time, and just that, really.
So Leo and I have just very recently celebrated our birthdays. He's now 15. I have a 15-year-old boy of my own. I would say that 15-year-old boy hormones are on a par, if not worse, than 15-year-old girl hormones. Tell us about life now. You've also got Louis. What does life look like now, and how is that different to the early days?
So I would say life is good now, and it's full. So we now have Louis, who I should definitely mention. He is 8 years old and is just the most amazing, caring, loving young boy, who is the most amazing, I should say, little/older brother, because he thinks he's definitely older than Leo. and cares for him and looks after him and always wants to help him. But it will definitely shape his life, and I hope in a good way. But yeah, life is good. I feel 15 years on, I am definitely now in a good place. I wouldn't say I've been in a bad place for the last couple of years, but definitely still a roller coaster. And I think I've just learned to deal with that a bit more. And my way of dealing with that is just getting my career back, I think. And that's been really important. But also having my career built around helping others has been massive for me. And it doesn't feel like work. So I'm very fortunate that I've been given an opportunity. And you believing in me and bringing me on board. And I just think the last 12 months has been a real highlight in my life over the last couple of years, and a massive saviour. I just, life's good at the minute, and I just feel in a much better place. Although I'm now in my 40s and getting older. But life is much better now.
Yeah, I think for me, having this journey with you at this point of your life where you've come back into work, you've been with the Brain Injury Group now for just over 12 months. I can see a little bit more of the old Kate coming through in the times that I see you away from our families. And that's really nice for me to see. Not that I don't love the time we spend together with our families, but it's really nice to see you as you a bit more. And I get the opportunity to do that through work. So you came on board with the Brain Injury Group using your professional skills and knowledge on the welfare benefits side, because you've worked for charities, haven't you, in the last few years, providing that guidance and advice. So you've done lots of good work supporting the families who we deal with their queries and support with welfare benefits, and all the little additional bits that you can bring, such as grants for adaptations and the things that you have personally battled for you and Leo in terms of respite. And, he's got his own space now at your home, which has been a challenge to get agreed and in place. He's also got space to go outside, hasn't he, which he loves to do. And off the back of the work you've been doing with us, we've started to work within Wales, and we're looking to expand that out with the Big Stepping Stones service. So I think it's only fair to hand over to you and say, tell us about what Big Stepping Stones means to you, what you would like to achieve with it, and where we would like to get to.
Yeah, I think obviously when I started with the Brain Injury Group, one of the things that I could see straight away was the support that we were providing was very much sort of clinical, like going into hospitals and rehabs and giving that kind of support. And from a different perspective, I kind of thought, well, why don't we go out more in the community? And I was a parent governor at my son's school for 4 years. I know that special needs schools will regularly have coffee mornings, which I've attended for years myself. And I know the conversations that are held in those, and they can be very emotional at times. But so that was one of the things that obviously I came to you and said, why don't we, as the Brain Injury Group, go in and provide support within special needs schools? And I know you and Alex were sort of like, oh yeah, we really like this idea, which I was like, yes, I'm going in. So and it just sort of has gone from there, really. So we then started, obviously, we spoke about one of the feedback that we had from the schools, and we were fortunate to trial it in my son's school, that I kind of kept saying, look, give me the bad feedback. That's the bad feedback I want. So we had gone in, had a coffee morning, obviously, which you attended just with me. And we just went in, and it was the biggest coffee morning they've had in so long, because they were like, this is great. This is, holistic support. We didn't go in and we didn't speak at them. We didn't give them a big presentation, and we just sat with them, had a coffee, took some biscuits, and just chatted with the parents and kind of centered it around what I felt was right. And we just spoke to them and just said, look, what is it you want? what is it? I know welfare benefits is always one of the top things that the parents need support with form filling and things like that. But there was lots of stuff, and I think there's lots of stuff that parents don't want to deal with until it's about to happen. And sometimes I think not knowing is worse than knowing. And so that was where obviously one of the feedback that we did have was some parents felt that when the brain injury group are coming to the coffee morning, families such as a child with autism would feel that it wouldn't be relevant to them, so therefore they wouldn't come to the coffee morning. But that's not what brain injury group is about. You know, we support everybody with a disability, and we didn't want to be going into special needs schools and stop parents going to their coffee mornings, because that's support for them, and it sometimes can be a lifeline. So that's where we then said, look, let's rebrand our outreach support for children and young people, and that's where big brain injury group Stepping Stones was born. And we're basically about to launch it, and I'm really excited about it. And I was given the opportunity to write the business proposal on it, which I'm really proud of. And I think from the moment I started writing the proposal, things have started coming in quicker than I expected, and they're organically growing. So, but yeah, I just love it. I'm just involved in quite a lot of engagement meetings, and obviously because I'm a parent and because I also work in this industry, it's just growing and growing and growing, like off the back of meetings that I attend. Someone, I'll get another email to say, do you want to come and join this? Do you want to come and join that? And that's great, because if I can share my lived experience, but also share what we do, and something that is built around parent support. To me, that's really important. And also, it's not just about parents hearing my story and lived experience and us giving that support. It's about professionals understanding it and understanding what families are going through. And I think to maybe change some of their mindset sometimes, and to take, appreciate some of the things families are going through and what they might think certain parents can be quite difficult to deal with. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Yeah. You're exhausted and you're surviving. And I think, and these some parents are very argumentative, but they're exhausted, they're knackered,
You've been through several battles that day to get to this next battle, haven't you? Because everything feels like a challenge or a battle, and you trying to do your daily life as well as having these battles on the side. And I think that's really important. I think one thing that struck me through the development of Stepping Stones and the schools and the communities that we've been out into is that there's nothing better to share in that support within a group of parents in an area that all have that lived experience, and overlaying that with some of the professional knowledge and guidance and information we can inform them with and arm them with, but giving them that ability to advocate for themselves as well, and supporting them with that and what those next steps should look like, and giving them that bit of drive and a bit of fire that they perhaps have lost along the way, to say, look, you can do this. Yeah. And I think it absolutely is important and key for us to have you driving that, because you are the one that's experienced it, and you know what's missing, what was lacking in your journey, and how we can perhaps work alongside other professionals. We work with a great network of professionals working in this industry, but if we can work alongside them to further enhance the support and the journey and the learnings and how we can work alongside parents and carers as well, I think that's where we need to get to.
Absolutely. And I think, when we go in and give this outreach support, it's whether it be in a health centre or in a school or wherever we're attending, or an information day, for me, it's empowering parents is what we want to do. It's not just saying, there you go, we've done it for you, it's done. Because for me, it's empowering parents, and I think because they'll go on and share that as well, and I think it will also help them develop as well and give them the tools too. Because unfortunately, you're not just going to have one fight. You're going to have a fight time and time and time again. So, and we can't do everything for everybody. So for me is empowering people, and just, we can be an advocate, and we can support people, and we can give them the tools. And, you know, like you mentioned, we've got a great network, but we don't want to overload parents either. We want to go in and we want to prioritize, and we just want to break it down for them and just make it less messy.
Yeah. So for the professionals and the other organisations within our network that we work alongside, or those professionals in this area that perhaps aren't part of our network, what thing would you want them to take away from this podcast? What thing would you want them to learn? How would you like them to move forward after listening to yours and Leo's story?
Work with the parents, you know, just listen to them, and sometimes, unfortunately, you are gonna be some sort of counsellor sitting and having to listen to them. And it's taken me years to build up relationships with certain people like OTs and social workers and things like that, and I've had lots of fallings out with some of them. But now I feel 15 years on that they get me, they know what I'm like, and that's important. And I think you're not going to learn that from a textbook. You're only going to learn that by engaging and coming on board and speaking. And I'm always open to speaking to professionals and parents and carers. So yeah, for me, it's just come and have a conversation. And I might not be right all the time. Well, my husband might disagree because I am always right. But I just come and have a conversation, and we work together. It's really important that people work together, and I'll learn from them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's 100% true. If there was one thing that you wish you'd known right at the very beginning that you know now, what would that be?
Oh God, that's a big question. That I can't fix him. That no amount of money is going to fix him. Money helps. Money gets better support, I will say that. But what you're given from statutory services doesn't always have to be what you're told that you should have. And for me, being able to share that with parents, and I wish someone had said that to me. You don't have to have what you're given. You don't have to.
That's not your only option.
Yeah, it's not your only option, and you are made to feel it's your only option, and you shouldn't disagree with what the professionals are saying to you, and that's not the case. You know, they're your child. You know them better than anybody. You know what's right for them. You know what they're capable of and what they're not capable of. I've been in many, many situations over the years when I'm sat there and Leo is smiling and he's happy, and I'm saying, he's had enough now, stop messing around with him, he's gonna blow. And they're like, okay. And they keep pushing and pushing and pushing. All of a sudden, he's blown in 0.1 seconds, and he's got hold of someone's hair, he's bitten them. And then you just sat there thinking, why am I crying? Why am I upset? Because they haven't listened to me. So as a parent, I would say, you know better, stand up, and don't let them put your child in that situation, because I get annoyed with that situation. I think, no, that's their fault, they're hurt, not mine, not Leo's. Leo can't communicate, that's their fault.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
Great. And one thing we want to do through these podcast series is for our guest on each podcast to leave a question for our guest on the next podcast. So the next podcast is going to be with Emma, our in-house midwife, talking about signs and things that perhaps happen throughout pregnancy and birth. Is there anything you would like to ask Emma to answer in her podcast?
My question for Emma, obviously with now being a part of Big Stepping Stones and obviously hearing about my lived experience quite a lot, and Emma being a professional, what's her take on it? What, obviously Emma wants to learn, she wants to listen, she wants to improve the whole process like we all do. So yeah, has your view changed in the last couple of months of us working together? And so yeah, I think, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Kate, and thank you for sharing your story. I know it can be a challenge sometimes to talk about something so personal, so I really appreciate it, and I think you did a great job as somebody who has been alongside you for a lot of the times. Thank you everyone for joining us on the Big and the Stepping Stones podcast. I think if you need anything, if you want to speak to either of us, you can always contact us at enquiries@thebraininjurygroup.co.uk, or you can get in touch with Kate if you've got any questions about Stepping Stones, or you want to look at how we can perhaps support within communities that you work. Thank you.
Thank you.